Thank you all very much for having me. It's been awesome to meet many of you in the audience and get to know you. I'm going to start off with something a new friend of mine in the furniture business told me today at lunch. I told him I was presenting up here later, and he said, get up there and tell them you help them make more money. Tell them you help increase revenue. And I thought, yeah, okay, that makes sense, and it's not a lie. That's what Buxton does. And I also realized in talking to all of you that none of you had any idea who Buxton was. And so I probably needed to start there before we get into talking about some of the things that we wanted to talk about that we're doing together with Elevar and that we think is very exciting. So on the revenue thing, we do help people get more revenue. In fact, that's what we say. We help you get more customers, and we help you get more out of your existing customers. We are the retail leader, the global retail leader in customer analytics. Let's unpack that for a minute. So Buxton has been around for more than 30 years. We were started before e-commerce existed. The retail at the time was brick and mortar, maybe some catalog. And we started the company on the premise that there had to be a deeper science to understanding consumer behavior than what existed in the market at the time. At the time, it was 1, 3, 5 mile rings and demographic reports. That's how you studied customers. And our founder ran real estate for a very large retail organization, had thousands of locations across the country. And he kept bumping up against the failures of that science. He would open a location, he would run the traffic report, he would run the demographic report. They would look just like his best performing locations. He'd open the location and the location would fail. And he said, why is that? What is going on? There's other variables at play. There's a deeper science here than what the science of the day is allowing me to do as I go open locations. So that was the premise for our company. And we set off down this path of customer analytics. We immediately sought to go get the best-in-class data, any data out there that told us about how consumers live their lives, how they behave. We acquired that data. We sourced that data. And then we use that data to help study our clients' customers. So a traditional Buxton engagement, a brand would send us all of their customer data. We would append everything we knew about those households to those records and profile those records at the most granular level possible. One of the things that we learned early on is that you can't aggregate data. You can't use zip code level data. You can't use block group level data. You have to use individual and household level data as you study consumers. That seems obvious to all of you in the e-commerce world. Y'all come from a world where the data, inherently was packaged that way from the start of the industry, but that's not how it always was, right? So these were lessons that we learned about analytics as we progress. So our principle has always been who, where, and value. We want to help our clients understand who their customers are at the deepest, most granular levels possible, where those customers are and others who look just like them, and then ultimately what their value is to the brand as a consumer, and how that value is impacted based on all the other things that impact that consumer's behavior, whether that's competition, whether that's how far away they live, whether that's something else that's going on in their day. How is that value impacted as a consumer? So that's kind of where we started as a company. So let's kind of fast forward to where we are today and talk about some of the things that we really wanted to highlight for you today. So that was 30 years ago. Obviously, the world has changed significantly over 30 years. Data has changed. Technology has changed. Consumers have changed, and brands have changed. With the advent of AI and everything that everybody has experienced over the last 2 years with ChatGPTs of the world and kind of AI having a revolution, we saw a problem in the industry that really opened the door for us to go solve. For years, we had been dissatisfied with what we call the conversation between brands and consumers. The interaction that is constantly happening through advertisements, through purchases, through engagements, that constant dialogue that's happening between brands and consumers. As we looked at our client base and we looked at the retail world, whether it was e-commerce, brick and mortar, or omni-channel, we saw that conversation was often one-sided, and it wasn't a very good dialogue. There's a lot of inefficiency in that conversation. There's a lot of dissatisfaction on both sides, the consumers and the brands, in terms of how that conversation occurred. And we also knew that we had set on a mountain of data that could help answer and better solve that conversation, help that conversation go more smoothly, help that be a better conversation. But until now, the technology really had not existed to be able to go analyze all that data in a way that we thought we could really help in that conversation. So a little bit about Buxton. Again, we have 500 plus data sets that we've compiled to help it as we go answer that. We have hundreds of clients and we have 40 analysts. So we're sitting as a company, we're looking at the world, we're saying, this problem has not been solved. This conversation is not an efficient one, and we've got the resources to be able to go solve this problem. So we set out, and I skipped some of our clients. Sorry, I missed my presentation slide there. We set out to solve this problem. I said, okay, so what data do we have that can help in this? Well, we get access to the transactions and the web visit activity that you see today. And this is the picture that most brands have of their customer. It's not the most clear picture, but it's how they think about their customer and who that customer is. We bring to that this mountain of attribute data of how this consumer lives their life, not just with you as a brand, but demographically, what their lifestyle is, what their home value is, do they have kids, all the other attributes that tell them how they behave as a consumer. We also have a proprietary cross-brand network of purchase transaction data and web visitation data for thousands of brands. So we see not just how this consumer behaves with you as a brand, but also how this consumer behaves across thousands of other brands. And we're able to use that to complete that 360-degree picture of who that consumer is. So the first thing that we wanted to do as we applied AI to all of that data was to develop actionable customer personas. Customer personas are something that's common in the market today. Everybody here has heard of personas. And pretty much everybody has the same thought about what personas are.
Who has personas for your business? Raise your hands.
Yeah. If I might ask a follow-up question, how many of you paid an agency or somebody to go create those? Okay. What we have found in the persona world is that generally these are personas that are created. They generally take months at a time for somebody to go create. They become static very quickly. They sit on the shelf, and that they're not able to be connected back to the customer's data in an actionable way. So we asked ourselves the question, can we create a better persona using AI, using our analytics experience, and using the technology that we have available to us? And so what you see on the screen is an example of the types of personas that we're now starting to create. And instead of taking a month to create this, we can create this in near real time right now by taking a feed of customer data, marrying it to all that mountain of Buxton's data that we have, and then using AI to draw connections specific to a brand. So as you look at some of the things that we're highlighting in here, yes, you've got the traditional demographic profile of who this individual is, but we're also telling you specific lifestyle attributes of how this person lives their life as a consumer of your brand. And we make specific recommendations for the messaging and the offers and the imagery to use with that persona.
How are you able to pull out those lifestyle attributes?
Yeah, so as mentioned, we are literally analyzing tens of thousands of known attributes on these consumers when we go look at any brand's consumers. And so we're looking for patterns, right?
Some examples of that, like data sets that you're
so we're looking at patterns of how these individuals are moving through the physical world, for example. So one of the things that we observe are mobile device signals. So we're actually able to, for pretty much 60% of the room today, we're probably able to see when we go to Topgolf after this. We can follow devices and understand how people move through the physical world. which is a dimension that we're able to bring to bear as we create these personas. But I think what makes these personas different than anything else out there on the marketplace is not only can we create these and do so near instantaneously, we can actually connect these personas back to your existing customer records or prospect records. So for every customer or prospect in your database, you can now know how to think about them, how to tailor the messaging in near real time, how to tailor the imagery and the content of your ads to better serve and personalize what you're serving to that individual. So that was a theme that I heard throughout a lot of the talks over the past couple of days, was personalization.
So if I'm a Viore customer and I walk into a Lululemon store in King Street, is that something that you think some marketing teams would want to know?
Absolutely. And that's something that we're tracking as we're developing these personas. So we're able to understand that competitive threat level, which is something we actually highlight in the personas for you. We highlight who are the top competitors that are most likely to impact this persona and what is that threat level to this persona. So all of this, as you can see, can help in the personalization, but then also in the prioritization of how you think about allocating your marketing dollars. That answer your question, Brad?
Yes. I'll go back to Viore.
Okay. Yeah. So these are some of the most common things that we are including in personas. Everything from names and descriptions to various marketing recommendations. As mentioned, we actually even provide you with email and text copy for how to go market to this, connected to your specific product lines. And so that's something that happens through the AI-driven process, where we're analyzing all the publicly available information about your brand, including your website, as we generate these personas. But again, being able to connect them back to your individual records, I think is what makes these powerful, because now as you look into your data, you can think about each of your customers differently based on their persona. You can understand which of your customers are budget savvy Brendas and how to think about marketing to her differently as a result of that. The second part, though, that we're using AI for right now as we analyze this customer data is what we've referred to as propensity scoring or customer scoring or lead scoring. So we're actually taking your customer records or your prospect records, and we're looking at that data and identifying a subset of that group. Today, one of the ones that we're focused on is best customers. So we look into your data and we say, who are your best customers? And we use all that data and we use the AI technology to go analyze literally billions of patterns of data to figure out what is that unique thumbprint that makes a best customer for your specific brand. And most brands don't just have one type of best customer. In fact, in our history of analyzing profiles for thousands and thousands of brands, generally speaking, you see anywhere from at minimum 4 to 5 different types of best customers, and sometimes more than that. And so we use the data to tell us how many personas there should be. But as we analyze those different groups of best customers, those different personas, we're also looking at all of your other customers, all the people that aren't behaving with you today like a best customer. And the question we're asking the AI to help us with is help us understand and find the patterns that allow us to understand where is their untapped potential within my existing customer base. And another way, who are all my non-best customers who should be best customers? Who are all the people who look just like my best customer in every dimension that we can look at? And when we look at all those patterns of how they live their life and how they move through the physical and the digital world, who are those people?
So if I'm Beth from Free Fly, so she was giving the example earlier about you started out targeting fishermen. I think you are a customer, as am I. But she was talking about, okay, we want to go after people that hike or outdoor life or I think was said.
That's right.
So would the persona, so with the way you just described it, would Beth and her team be able to focus on, okay, well, let's market towards fishermen this way or golfers this way?
That's exactly right. And that's what, we would let the data fall out of the personas as to what that would say. But presumably, yes, you might see a fisher man persona and a golfer persona as two different individuals, maybe more than that. Maybe you have a couple of fisher personas and a couple of golfer personas that fall out of the data. But
what about, so Chad with Diff Eyewear, where he had the male versus female, well, that's two personas. If he's already asking the SMS flow, are you shopping for male or female sunglasses? Isn't that all that he needs? Or should he go deeper?
I think it goes a lot deeper than that. I think what you're going to find as you look at the data and you look at how people live their lives, are patterns that go well beyond just am I male, am I female, in terms of how I think about my customer base. We consistently see unique patterns that tell us that there's a much deeper science to understanding a given brand's customers. And if you don't understand what those differences are, it's really hard to relate and improve that conversation with the customer like we were talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're trying to help you find, as one of the terms we've used, your hidden gems within your customer base. Where do you have untapped potential to focus your budget within your existing customer base? So in addition to the personas, we're creating a score system that assigns a score to every one of your customers or your leads, and helps you understand how similar does that individual look to my best customers. Now, there's lots of different applications to this. And the way all this works, all the data comes in and it gets pushed through our AI brain. It's kind of how we refer to it internally. The personas get created, the scores get created, but the applications of this are really twofold. One, it's prioritization. So you've got limited budget, you've got limited resources of how to allocate your dollars. So prioritizing your targeting, your budgeting, creating exclusion lists for who should I not focus dollars toward within my customer and prospect list, optimizing your bid strategy to bid more on higher scoring individuals versus lower scoring individuals, and then personalization, as we've all talked about. We know personalization improves our marketing results. Being able to tailor the offers, the messaging, the imagery, and speaking to individuals in the channels that they want to be spoken to. All these things combined allow the solution to help you improve your marketing efforts using AI and a whole lot of data. So we've got a minute left. I'll open it up to any questions.
So let's tie it together from some of the different sessions we had today. Do you have any more slides?
No.
Okay. So personalization is one that's been coming up a lot, obviously today and yesterday, but in a lot of conversations that we have with many of our customers like you. If I'm a brand and I'm not doing really any personalization today, I'm doing batch and blast. I might be doing some light segmentation of, okay, first time buyer, I put them into 30, 60, 90 day, try to get them to purchase that second, third time, maybe a few win back campaigns, but I'm really not doing anything else besides that. Where do I start? What's my next step?
Well, I think your next step first is to understand, who in that group should I not even be wasting my time with? We like to use some extreme examples for that, but if you've got a kid in Arizona who's been searching your yacht website, yeah, he's probably not your buyer. And, if you don't know the attributes of that individual and who they are as a person, not just how they've behaved with you as a brand, if you don't know enough about them to be able to say, I'm not going to waste any money on this individual, then you're wasting dollars that could be reallocated toward people with a lot more potential. And so I think there's the dimensions of both excluding people that you shouldn't be marketing to intelligently, as well as allocating your budget toward individuals with the most potential to spend more with you. And then using that same logic as you approach your prospecting and your leads that are coming in to your business.
And with Jimmy, on the session we had with Jimmy earlier as well, he was talking a little bit about focusing on channels, like, hey, the Gen Z versus millennials versus the 50 plus, et cetera, they interact and behave differently in different channels. So I think that's something that's really stood out to me as I've been exposed to this process of, okay, if I have a million customer file list that's just simply appended with what's the score of them 0 to 100 likely to purchase as it looked like to your best customer, and what channel is likely to convert them and what is the best offer. But the offer part, I think, is interesting because it's not necessarily the offer like the deepest discount or the product with the deepest discount to get them to buy. A lot of times it's trying to save on margin so you're not giving away too much. So maybe unpack that a little bit with the offer and how that applies, which is really interesting to me.
It's really about optimization. I mean, you don't want to give away margin where you don't have to. And so when we make an offer recommendation, we're looking at the price sensitivity that we've evaluated associated with each persona to ensure that we're offering the offer that we feel will resonate the most with them, but without giving away the maximum margin. It's a starting point. Don't start higher. Start here. See if they respond there first before giving away 20 other points. And so that's the whole goal there is the optimization.
Great. Well, yeah, go. Can we get a microphone up? And if anyone else has any questions, get ready.
So question, are you integrating this data back into a Klaviyo or something else in real time?
We are headed there. We are very, very close to doing that. We are right now in testing phases of setting up data transfer pipelines with Elevar, which we've already established, and the ability to sort of pass data from Elevar to the Buxton environment to be scored through these engines, and then passed back into the Elevar destinations. And so that is very, very close to being a reality.
So in theory, if someone's shopping in a store, I can know at a competitor and send them a text message.
Not doing that yet. So that was definitely when we first talked about this. That was the one that blew my mind. Honestly, it was like, holy shit! Would any of our customers want to know when their best customers haven't bought in the last 90 days or 30 days and they're in a competitor location? Hell yeah! Would that be something that would be worthwhile? Hell yeah! So that part what we're doing right now, just with I don't know, call it 10 brands plus or minus 5. Plus or minus 5. I don't know. It's the end of the day. It's been a long couple of days. So we have a beta destination, a private beta destination. It's a Buxton destination where we are piping real-time data just like your Facebook destination. That's going over in addition to a historical customer pool. So historical customer and order data pool. That's used to build the engine. This is where I hand it up to Phil to maybe get more technical, but that basically builds the engine of, okay, who are your best customers, not just based on what they spent, but what are the attributes? What are the 12,000 possible attributes? So then that goes into the persona build. From there, then what we're doing is on your historical customer list, appending those columns. So likelihood to buy immediately. Yeah. I can never remember the phrase that you use. For some reason, it's a brain block. But again, the 0 to 100 of likely to buy, the channel, and then the offer. But that's just one score. I think there's many subscription brands here. I think the other one that we'll be testing next with brands is likely to churn. So it could be a churn customer for one time, but also churns subscriber, and then acting on that. So trying to get ahead of that. So play offense instead of defense when someone does cancel, like through a cancellation capture. So anyway, so those customer records are being scored, and then instead of just coming into Elevar and automatically populating as a Klaviyo and Google Ads, et cetera, what we're doing is we're taking those files. So our team is taking those files and working with a brand to import them hand in hand just to make sure they're good. It's basically like a passive listening. So with Google Ads, you can create segments and then just basically monitor the performance of that audience against your existing campaigns without having to change anything. Same thing with Klaviyo. You can add a attribute to the property in Klaviyo and just start doing analysis there. And then meta audiences are obviously a little bit different, but that's where we're at right now. And then I think as we do more testing, that's the goal, is to automate all of it. So it's coming back right now in the Elevar way, that if you've been around us for a long time, we definitely prototype it before just building it, assume it works, and it's just going to magically work the first time we build it. So it's a lot of just checking and making sure, and we don't want to impact any revenue producing campaigns that are in place.
As Brad mentioned, really what we've built at this point is the foundation for these analytics and the pipes to be able to deploy them. And ultimately, we do envision using this same engine for lots of different types of scores, whether it's churn, whether it's best customer lookalikes, but being able to use the same pipes, the same engine to do that. I saw a Black Mirror episode. I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen that show, and they've got this bubble that floats above their head, and it's got a score and depending upon how they interact with people in the world, that score changes. And that's really how I think about what we're doing right here. Like, this score is always changing as you interact with a brand, as we see that person interact with another brand, as we see that person move through the physical world. That score is constantly updating. So you've got this live look at every consumer from the lens of your brand for what their potential is for you at any moment in time.
Good question in the middle.
I think a lot of this like personalization and customization it's really interesting. I come from a background of fairly small startup brands where the question usually comes to how do you make this actionable at our level, because you're not going to target a segment of 10 people, especially when you think about, competitive targeting. How do you think about scaling up and down this type of tactic and personalization for bigger brands or smaller brands where, the manpower to build out 12 segments based upon some data just isn't really an option?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, that I would just add one word to that. It's not possible yet. So it's not an if, it's a when. So yeah, that is, I forget who I was talking to last night about this, but as we've been going through and just prototyping, working hand in hand with our customers through this, it's, you don't have a team of 12 that can just create hundreds of creative and set up all different flows. So just doing that one time is a PITA, but then you want to do that every week, there's no way anyone's going to do that. So that is 100% right in our line, clear view of sight of, this is a problem that we need to make sure is solved so anybody can take advantage of this. Otherwise, all of the engine and all this work that we're doing, it's not really it won't be worth anything. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tomorrow will be better. Yeah.
Worst it's ever going to be. And one of the things that we're doing right now, and the reasons we're using the personas, is it's a way to make it more manageable in the time for right now, until we are able to handle true one-to-one marketing, because everything we're putting in the persona, we can do that at an individual level. The personas just give us a way to make it a little bit more actionable and manageable right now for the marketer.
Well, and one more thing to add on to that. So what we are, baby steps, cookie crumb trail testing, is attaching sample SMS descriptions, hooks and descriptions, and emails. So attaching those to the personas, and kind of just like, how close are we? And I think a couple have been like, wow, this is awesome. So I think if we can do a couple of those and they're great, but if you can 100x that and they're still good, then that becomes the automation where it's a variable in your Klaviyo templates or your Attentive or Sendlane, your different email and SMS software, where you don't really have to do it. It's all done for you. In creative, obviously, how fast creative production is moved, again, that's automated as well.
Yeah.
Not that it's perfect yet, again, but today is the worst day that your ChatGPT cats will look.